Good morning. Thank you all for joining us today. I'm Constable Ryan Gable with the Montgomery County Constable's Office Precinct 3. The aim of this press briefing is to inform the public about my office's initiatives to address child exploitation in the greater Houston area, particularly southern Montgomery County. In a groundbreaking collaborative effort, the Montgomery County Precinct 3 Constable's Office and the Houston Police Department have come together to tackle child exploitation and human trafficking. This operation draws on the expertise of the Human Trafficking Rescue Alliance and the members of the Houston Metro ICAC Task Force, with essential backing from the Montgomery County District Attorney's Office. Additionally, this initiative included an undercover ICAC operation which significantly enhanced our efforts to identify and apprehend offenders. The internet has evolved into a significant platform for offenders who exploit children and traffic victims for sexual purposes. By integrating human trafficking and ICAC investigations, we utilize digital forensics and online tracking to uncover trafficking networks, while insights from trafficking cases improve ICAC's ability to identify victims. Our mission focused on detecting adults who exploit and solicit children online, particularly through social media, chat applications, and other identified platforms that are rich in potential exploitation. Concurrently, a separate team of investigators scoured these same social media networks to locate what we suspected were juveniles being sexually trafficked. Employing undercover strategies, we aim to attract these victims and their traffickers successfully, rescuing the victims and apprehending the traffickers. This operation spanned 3 days and produced the following outcomes from our initiatives. It netted 7 arrests for prostitution, 3 arrests for promotion of prostitution, identified traffickers, 4 arrests for online solicitation of a minor, which included the capture of a registered child sex offender, 1 arrest for child trafficking, 1 arrest for unlawful possession of a firearm by a convicted felon, 1 arrest for evading law enforcement, 1 arrest for possession of a prohibited weapon, and 2 arrests related to drug offenses. All the charges outlined are classified as felony offenses under Texas law. In addition to these figures, we received 6 reports from trafficking victims who contacted us during this operation. These individuals are real people whose lives have been irrevocably altered due to the collective efforts of everyone involved in this mission. Each charge, arrest, and life affected serves as a powerful reminder of what we can achieve when we unite to safeguard the most vulnerable members of our society. My office remains committed to identifying those who seek to exploit and traffic our children. We will continue to collaborate with our law enforcement partners to ensure these offenders are held accountable. In addition to our office, the Houston Police Department, and the Montgomery County District Attorney's Office, I would like to thank the following agencies for their work and assistance in making this such a successful operation: the Department of Public Safety, the Texas Rangers, the Montgomery County Constable's Offices Precinct 1, 2, 4, and 5, the Humble Police Department, and the LaPorte Police Department. We had some non-governmental organizations I'd like to recognize as well: the YMCA, DPS Victims Assistance, the Landing, and the BCFS. With all of that said, thanks again for being here today. I'd like to turn it over to Commander Zia with the Houston Police Department.
Good morning, and thank you, Constable Gable, for allowing me to say a few words about our shared success. As the Constable mentioned, my name is Salam Zia. I'm a commander with the Houston Police Department, and I have the honor and privilege to lead the Vice Division's Human Trafficking Unit. I also want to begin by praising the outstanding collaboration between our agencies and the results we achieved together during Operation Safe Haven. This operation's success truly reflects our shared commitment to keeping our community safe. Human trafficking is a heinous crime that preys on the vulnerable, so it takes a united front to combat it effectively, and that is where the Human Trafficking Rescue Alliance, otherwise known as HETRA, becomes essential to our efforts. HETRA, which originated in 2004 through a federally funded grant, champions a collaborative model where all levels of law enforcement agencies and non-governmental organizations, including victim advocates, leverage each other's talents and resources to address public safety as a community. These partnerships demonstrate the power of working together to dismantle trafficking networks and protect victims. When we join forces, we not only strengthen our ability to uphold justice and ensure public safety, but we send a loud and clear message to both survivors and traffickers. To the survivors, our collaboration says, you are not alone. We see you, and we are working tirelessly to protect you and hold those that have harmed you accountable. And to the traffickers, we make it clear, there will be no safe haven for you. The relentless efforts of our teams, including the members standing over here, will leave no stone unturned in the pursuit of justice. We will hold you accountable for the harm you have caused. Together, we are sending a loud and clear message. Human trafficking has no place in our communities, and we will not rest until it is eradicated. Thank you.
Good morning. My name is Donna Hanson, and I'm a prosecutor with the Montgomery County District Attorney's Office. I work for our elected, Brett Ligon. My current assignment is that I am the Division Chief of the Special Victims Unit. As a part of that, we are working closely, not only with Precinct 3 and members of the ICAC task force, to eradicate human trafficking in our jurisdiction. We are so thankful to HPD for coming up and sharing their knowledge and experience with us in terms of their investigations. We appreciate that they have given us a knowledge base for how to target traffickers for the right types of cases. And we are committed to seeking justice on behalf of every single victim of human trafficking, and we will see to it that these offenders are put where they belong. If anybody has any questions, we'd be happy to answer them.
Have all these people been arrested
Yes, ma'am.
and are in jail or?
They're either in jail or have made bond. Yes, ma'am.
And you mentioned it was over a 3-day period. Did that happen recently, or can you say any time frame of when this happened?
It was within the last month that we ran this operation. It was 3 days long, and we actually did a couple of different tactics, both of which were successful for us.
And can you talk a little bit about that? I know not too specific of tactics, but just how, I mean, just in layman's terms of like, there were undercover officers involved messaging people on the apps, or can you just say how it worked?
I think I'm going to let him answer that since that's more his.
Thank you.
Yeah, sure. So without going too much into tradecraft, I'll speak very generally, right? And so, yes, undercovers were involved, and they typically meet the victims and the traffickers where they are. And in today's environment, that's usually cyberspace, whether it's through social media or other websites. And that's where the communication starts, right? And so through the communication, we're able to make a sex date and meet the trafficker and the victim, depending on where we're located, where the operation is being run. And in many instances, the traffickers will accompany the victim. And so depending on the type of operation that you conduct, some prove more beneficial to trafficking cases. And those are normally the ones that we try to employ. We'll be able to make those trafficking cases in those type of operations. I'll also tell you that from our experience, we tend to target juveniles. When I say target, that's who we're looking to recover, right? Because in the trafficking world, there's no other commodity that is most precious to traffickers than juveniles, for obvious reasons. They're the ones that bring the highest income potential to traffickers, right? They're also the most vulnerable and the most innocent among us. So if we're going to focus our resources at the Houston Police Department, our goal is to find those victims. And typically, the way we operate and the tactics that we use, we've done a really good job finding juveniles. And typically, when we find them, they're also accompanied by a trafficker. Right, and so, but these arrests, I want to emphasize, is just the beginning of the investigation. There's still, there's still a large portion of the investigation that's still to come, and that's very common with trafficking investigations. It's one of the hardest, and I'm sure the district attorney will agree with me. It's one of the hardest and most complicated investigations you can work, and so. Just because the arrest was made doesn't necessarily mean the investigation is over. Typically, these traffickers, especially the ones that tend to lure and exploit juveniles, have other victims, right? And so In some of these instances, we're only able to get maybe one victim, but we know there's others that are out there. And so the only way we're able to continue and try to identify those is by continuing the investigation. So the rest is tip of the iceberg. We still have to deal with everything that's still underneath the water. Hopefully that answered your question.
If I may too, also real quickly speak on the side of the ICAC portion of this. Good morning, my name is Freddie Croft. I'm the lieutenant with the Houston Police Department Special Victims Division, and I play the role of ICAC commander for the Houston Metro ICAC Task Force. Before I go into too much about the operation from the ICAC standpoint, I do really want to thank Constable Gable, Captain Acosta, the HPD Human Trafficking side, and the Montgomery County DA's office for coming together on this collaborative effort. A special thanks to Montgomery County Precinct 3 Constable Detective Ashley Walker. She was the one that really spearheaded this operation. Historically, ICAC and Human Trafficking have worked separately. This was the first time that we've really come together in a collaborative effort, and I think the results show for themselves. This type of operation will be the new model that we target online offenders that are targeting our children, and really excited for the future and what that holds. Over the past decade, the prevalence of online exploitation has exploded. We've seen an increase of over 500% over the past decade in the amount of crimes that are reported to us at the Houston Police Department ICAC unit, and that encompasses the greater Houston area. Before COVID, we were getting about 3,000 cases reported to us a year. The past 2 years, we've gotten over 20,000 cases reported to us. So with the exponential rise of this, we're coming up with new and creative ways to tackle these problems. For anybody looking for resources from the child exploitation side, children are targeted online all the time by offenders in various methods. I always want to give a shout out to the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children. They have a ton of resources out there for parents, educators, and people of the community, both on prevention side and how to recover if you are a victim of those crimes. They manage the cyber tip line, their website does, where you can report if you are a victim of one of these crimes, and it'll get routed to one of the 61 different ICAC task forces across the U.S., depending on where you're located. And most importantly, I do always want to give a call out to parents and members of the community to really talk to your children. That's the only way we're going to be able to really combat these crimes, is getting with the children, talk to them about what they're doing, what their habits are online, and better ways to be safe. So please be involved, be part of the solution. In closing, I think it's clear that with this type of operation in the Houston area, we take this seriously. Online targeting of children online will not be tolerated. We will find you, and you will be held accountable for your actions, especially up here in Montgomery County with the great work that Precinct 3 Constable's Office and all the partner agencies did. So if you have any questions on the ICAC side or the child exploitation side, I can help answer those as well.
Are there any more questions for anybody?
Do you have anybody in Spanish that can give us some comments?
Yeah, we have somebody coming.
Perfect.
That's what I was gonna ask. Is this, the other question I was gonna ask, if there's anybody that's gonna go ahead and put up the video, it's not only the Telemundo and Univision doing it, but expressively saying it correctly, what's going on. How many of the percentage of the ones that are being called, because if they're legal or illegals, or they're triple or four-time offenders that have been walking in, all that information needs to be out. Not only that, if the resources that you guys have, are they able to be translated and they're able to be placed out there so the Hispanic community? I have a radio show which is fully bilingual. I'm able to, today, I'm having a full show about this, and I would like to know what is it that I'm able to tell my community, more than 67,000 people listening to, that are able to know what's going on, how it's gonna go. And I know that you guys are in the bottom of the research. I mean, you guys trying to get the head of the person, because you guys gotta get to the head one day, but I need to know more specifics. Can you bring that out? I would appreciate it.
I want to make sure, you said a lot, so I want to make sure I answer your question properly. So you want to know what law enforcement can do to help educate the Hispanic community? Is that essentially?
No, basically, if this information is going to be completely translated in Spanish correctly, most of my listeners, they don't know how to read and write in Spanish. Right. They are going through Telemundo, Univision, and us to learn what's going on. So basically, we have to deal with those part of the community. There's another part of the community that are able to understand and read the English and Spanish correctly. So I'm trying to figure it out. If there's any type of outcome where everything is gonna be completely translated, from who, what, when, and whatever, and at the same time, how it's gonna proceed from now on, and who do they need to call if they are victims. Most of these people are probably victims, that they're victims, and they're being targeted. They're being targeted because of their ignorance, of not knowing who or what is, in front of them, and especially if they're minors. So if you guys can give us a little bit.
So in terms of the translation, I think we can get with our public information officer. We'll get with Precinct 3 and see how we can have this presser transcribed or translated so that it's available for the Latino community. So I'll tell you that regardless of where you come from, sex trafficking or just human trafficking cases are very complicated. And it's a very highly underrepresented crime within within the criminal justice system. And there's really two reasons for that. The biggest reason is the victims don't think that they're victims. And I think that has a lot to do with the exploitive situation that they're in. They're under the manipulative control of the exploiter, the trafficker. And so sometimes it's their boyfriend, other times it's a family member. And so they may not view themselves as being trafficked. So when there is an encounter with law enforcement, and law enforcement tries to understand the nature of the situation, and sometimes even when you ask them, are you being trafficked, they'll say no. And it's very common that we'll encounter trafficking victims who, once we look back and do our research, they've had encounters with police and several times have said, I'm not a victim, I'm not a victim. So it's not uncommon that it takes several encounters, right, or experiences before a victim actually comes out and says, I'm a victim. So I think on the Houston Police Department side, we have education material on our website. It's in, I think, about 25 languages, including Spanish. The Human Trafficking Unit, as part of the Human Trafficking Rescue Alliance, we do podcasts, we've done public messaging campaigns on YouTube. Our folks go out to community events. The last time we went out to one was the Alianza y Confianza on the East End in Houston. We'll have tents set up where members of the community can come up, get information. We have Spanish-speaking officers over there. For those that either want to know more or want to contact somebody to maybe report, first of all, if you're in immediate danger, you should call 911, right? And that's first and foremost. If you don't report it, nobody's going to know. We're not going to know the whole picture. The second thing is, lean to your local law enforcement agencies. Most, if not all, law enforcement agencies usually have somebody that is bilingual. And so we can connect, the victim or concerned citizen with somebody that speaks the same language so that they could truly understand what the concern is. And on top of that, if there's a particular need within a community, we're always willing to do something special, whether it's a podcast to talk about a particular crime or a particular concern in the community. In this case, human trafficking. We're more than happy to do that. And so, in fact, we're scheduling one now, hopefully in the near future. You guys know that in January it's Human Trafficking Month, right? And so it's not that we only take 1 month to focus on human trafficking, but that's the month that's been nationally recognized as a way to send a message to the entire community that, hey, this is important to us. It's not just a problem for the folks that are impacted, but it's a community responsibility, right? And so there's a lot of public messaging campaigns that go on through during that month. But there's, and I don't want to speak for Precinct 3, but just from my experience working with all our partners, they all do a great job with the resources that they have to try to connect with different segments of the community, because we realize that traffickers and exploiters, they understand that too. You understand? So they're evaluating the landscape just as we are. And so they're going to go, as exploiters do, they're going to go and they're going to target individuals who, one, aren't going to talk, right? Don't feel like they can talk because maybe, as you had mentioned, they could be undocumented, right? Or maybe they are segregated from the community for whatever reason, because they know that will allow them the opportunity to build a rapport relationship with them to start the exploitation process. So hopefully that answered some, if not all, your questions.
Does anybody else have any more questions?
Very last, just making sure I understood, there were juveniles rescued within this operation?
Correct, yes, there were.
Do you know how many?
I believe we had one that was rescued, yes.
Can somebody tell us what we're looking at here? Who are these people?
These gentlemen up here were arrested. These were the male traffickers. Some of them solicited children online during the undercover ICAC operation of this whole thing that we joined together. So some of these, there's one up here in particular that was trafficking the minor. You'll see him at the bottom in the middle.
And what charges are they facing and how much?
I'll let the DA's
So
office
you can
talk
see
about
at the bottom of each picture, we have the crime listed that they've been charged with. Promotion of prostitution is going to be a third-degree felony. Compelling is going to be a first degree. Online solicitation of a minor is a second degree. So that's what those guys are facing.
And then we have another set of people coming, like this ladies.
Okay. So prostitution for the first and second time are going to be a Class B misdemeanor. And then it gets enhanced to a Class A misdemeanor. And then once you have 3 or more convictions for prostitution, it would put you in that state jail felony range.
Do you guys know these ladies that are involved in prostitution, are they being trafficked themselves as well? Do you have no idea on that?
So a part of our investigation was to explore that very first out the gate to make sure that we did not put a victim of human trafficking in jail for prostitution. So that is absolutely something that these detectives were key in making sure of before we made any charging decisions.
Can you elaborate a little bit more? You said y'all did get one rescue.
We did.
How old the child was it?
I can tell you she's under 18.
And she's gonna do the Spanish?
Yes. Brenda, are you ready?
This is Detective Brenda Olmedo. She's with the Precinct 3 Constable's Office.
I did not get her name. Can you tell your name and your title?
My name is Brenda. My last name is Olmedo,
And your title?
detective from Precinct 3 Constable's Office.
Sí, si nos puede decir en resumen básicamente qué fue lo que están anunciando.
So, lo que tuvimos fue un operativo. El propósito de esto es para ayudar a los niños menores que normalmente se meten en la internet y empiezan a chatear o X cosas con gente y son gente que están buscando a menores.
¿Cuántas personas fueron arrestadas?
El total ellos son los hombres que son los que promocionaron lo de la prostitución o que fueron a solicitar menores de edad. En total fueron 7 hombres y 7 mujeres. Tuvimos una niña menor de edad que ella fue rescatada.
Entre esas personas obviamente también hay personas afectadas de la comunidad hispana, latina.
Claro que sí, siempre.
¿Cuál es el mensaje para los padres, las familias hispanas?
Lo que les puedo decir es que se involucren mucho con sus hijos, que chequen mucho sus tabletas, sus teléfonos. Si tienen alguna pregunta, pueden siempre llamar a cualquier recurso y pedir ayuda. Si tienen una pregunta, por ejemplo, a veces nuestros hijos bajan ciertas apps y nosotros no sabemos qué es lo que es, entonces ustedes pueden hablar y preguntar sobre eso. Es mejor preguntar a que quedarse con las dudas.
Mucha de nuestra comunidad es comunidad que no tiene documentos. ¿Qué le puede decir a ellos?
Nosotros no nos vamos a los documentos. Nosotros venimos aquí a ayudar a la gente. No importa que tenga papeles o no importa que no tenga papeles. Estamos aquí para ayudar y brindar lo más recursos que podamos.
¿Este operativo fue durante cuánto tiempo? ¿Se puede más o menos saber?
Varios días.
Este mes.
Sí, de este mes, sí.
¿En qué localidades tomó esto? ¿En qué localidades de lo que es el sector norte de Houston o solamente en el área de Montgomery?
En la área de Montgomery.
En el área de
Sí.
Montgomery. Estuvieron completamente en conjunto con Houston para apoyo, ¿verdad?
Sí.
Ok. Y ustedes cuando se dan cuenta que la persona está siendo victimada, ¿cómo ustedes pueden, o sea, puedo poder preguntarse, se puede decir, las carnadas, o sea, los detectives encubierta, ellos mediante el internet identifican exactamente el área donde la persona está para llegar ahí o cómo hicieron? Perdona.
Como ¿quién identifica el
Supongamos que
área?
la persona está siendo afectada en Montgomery, pero la persona vive en Houston. Se hace otro condado. Ustedes tuvieron que colaborar con el área de Houston para poder tomar a la persona.
Sí, siempre colaboramos mucho. Por ejemplo, Houston nos ayudó mucho y nos brindó mucho apoyo para todo este operativo. Así que nosotros agarramos los recursos para poder brindar esa ayuda para las víctimas y a las niñas. Pero las agarramos, por ejemplo, si no importa dónde sean. Pueden hacer de Harris County, pueden hacer de Galveston, no importa. Si ellos vienen acá con nosotros, nosotros brindamos esa ayuda.
Perfecto. Otra pregunta que te iba a hacer. Cuando hablamos de un porcentaje de afectados, ¿me podrías dar más o menos un porcentaje de la comunidad hispana que está siendo afectada en estos momentos durante el último año, 2 años, vamos a decir prácticamente?
Honestamente no te podría dar el porcentaje, pero sí hay un gran porcentaje de hispanos.
Exactamente.
Sí, hay un gran porcentaje. Y tenemos muchos también que son víctimas que vienen de otro país.
Exacto.
Y están aquí ilegalmente y nosotros nomás ellos vienen a hacer esto y no saben que pueden reportarlos, se sienten
¿Tienen
muy...
miedo?
Sí.
¿Tienen miedo, coerción? Ok,
Sí.
perfecto. ¿Hay alguna línea de teléfono donde ellos se pueden comunicar? La comunidad hispana puede comunicarse con ustedes y decir, ¿sabes qué? Puedo llamar por teléfono a este safe phone donde no me van a juzgar y puedo dar mi información para reportar que mi hija, mi hijo o un sospecho de una persona que está siendo victimizada o victimized por este tipo de ring de prostitución y de tráfico humano.
Sí, como por ejemplo dijo Houston, ellos siempre, por ejemplo, se mete usted en línea siempre hay páginas que se pueden meter y pedir esos recursos. Yo no tengo el número conmigo ahorita, pero sí se lo podría dar más al ratito sobre esos números, porque sí hay números que usted puede llamar y puede pedir hablar con una persona en español para que le puedan ayudar.
Sí, si estás en peligro, obviamente.
El 911, obviamente, si está en peligro, inmediato peligro, habla el 911 y ellos le ayudan.
Sí, quería nada más que nos concentráramos un poquito en estas imágenes para entender un poquito más. ¿Estas personas fueron arrestadas, están en la cárcel, por ejemplo, estas mujeres?
Sí.
¿Y el cargo de ellas era porque estaban ejerciendo o estaban involucrando a otras personas en la prostitución o cómo?
Ellas es por prostitución a todas ellas.
O sea, ¿estaban involucrando a otras personas en la prostitución o ellas estaban ejerciendo?
Ellas estaban ejerciendo.
Okay. ¿Y los otros hombres que estaban allí eran personas que estaban...
Por ejemplo, si tú le miras ahí arribita, donde dice Online Solicitation of a Minor, eso quiere significar que él estaba metiéndose en línea para solicitar a un menor. ¿Sí me explico? Ok. Y los de abajo son por promoción de prostitución. Él estaba promocionando a las personas para prostituirse. Ok. Y tráfico de niño.
La persona que está arriba dice eso, online solicitation of a minor. Él es un registered sex offender.
A ver, es que no lo alcanzo a leer, permítame.
El primero, el señor de arriba. Él es un registered sex offender, ¿verdad?
Sí.
O sea que básicamente ya tenía...
Ella tenía cargo, sí.
Tenía cargo.
Sí.
Ok, perfecto.
¿Las edades de estas personas las podemos tener después? O?
Por ejemplo, ¿la edad de quién? ¿De los que están arrestados
Sí.
o de los...? Se me hace que eso es público.
Okay.
Eso ustedes lo pueden obtener.
¿Algo más que nos quiera decir?
Nomás de que estar al tanto de los niños y cualquier cosa, no tengan miedo en buscar ayuda. Mucha gente no piensan que llamar a la policía es algo peligroso, pero en realidad nosotros estamos aquí para ayudarlos.
Consejos para los padres.
Estar al tanto de los niños, chequearles todo, estar al pendiente. Miran algo raro, llamar, educarse sobre todo.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you.
Okay. Yes, questions?
Is there something that can be said that this crosses all demographics? that no matter how safe parents feel, hey, I watch their phone, I have this parent guard on the phone, whatever app it is, this doesn't matter if it's somebody that works in a professional setting or somebody that works elsewhere, that this crosses, can you say anything about that? Like how careful, like if you think you're safe, this is all demographics. It's human, it's not an area of town.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, child exploitation doesn't have any demographics. It doesn't care about demographics. If a child has access to the internet, they have a smartphone, they're on it, they're unsupervised with it, they're exposed to it. It doesn't matter any kind of social background, economical background, nothing matters. We see it coming from all sorts of backgrounds when we open up these cases. Captain Adam Acosta.
So on the screen right now, there's only one that's shown as a registered sex offender. Will the others eventually, through the process, be registered sex offenders?
So I can let the DA's office comment more, but, you know, as the cases go through the prosecution phase, and then you're talking later on down the road with punishment and stuff like that, that could be a requirement that could be set as part of their conditions, yes.
Do the agencies have difficulty, are there any challenges keeping track of sex offenders that are registered?
So the Texas Department of Public Safety, the DPS, they have a national or state registry for us. So no, we know who's typically registered and whatnot. As soon as we get an ID on somebody and we can do a good background on them, we typically know if they're a registered sex offender. So.
Is there any statistics on the recidivism rate on registered sex offenders?
I don't have any of that information on.
Do you see the efforts expanding at all in the next year, or any new resources that you might have at the state, federal, or other levels that help to widen the net at all?
You know, I can let Lieutenant Croft speak on funding and resources from the grant standpoint, but, you know, we're always looking to expand. You know, we're always asking for new resources and whatnot, so the constable's always in the commissioner's court. We're looking for new ideas, new positions, stuff like that. Lieutenant Croft has been a huge help in assisting our agency with funding to get more technology, training and whatnot. Okay. If there are no other questions, then thank you all for coming out and sharing this information with us.